Welcome to the DeFi Standard. This is Patty XRP, and today I am going to discuss the announcement of the minimum viable product launch from Panther Protocol on top of Ethereum's layer 2 smart contract solution called Polygon, also formerly known as Matic. And additionally, we will get into kind of giving a recap for anybody that's not familiar with Panther Protocol to this date. Additionally, you may be wondering why, Patty, you cover Flare Network and XRP. Why are you talking about something that's coming onto Ethereum? Well, Panther Protocol has actually been partnered with the Flare Network since last spring and will be launching on Flare Network in the future, which we'll get into that later in this video. But just kind of a brief recap on, what Panther Protocol is, what it does, what's the point of it. So Panther Protocol is going to be a multi-chain project. So it'll be on top of Ethereum, Flare Network, uh, you know, Polkadot, Cardano, Solana, all those like big smart contract ecosystems. And what it enables is for users to have private transactions. They can store their funds privately, and it's always going to be one-to-one backed with the underlying asset. Additionally, there's going to be tools for you to basically selectively disclose information about yourself to, entities that are maybe regulated by the government and not decentralized, so that you can still interact with them from the blockchain sphere, going to, maybe a company like Amazon in the future if they're going to take payments and crypto and things like that. You may want to just reveal a little information about yourself to them, but not all of your information. So that's kind of what this is born out of. It uses zero knowledge proofs, hence the ticker symbol for its native token, Panther, is going to be ZKP. And so zero knowledge proofs basically allow people to have private transactions, private identity, private identifying information on the blockchain. And it still allows you to prove it to certain people without revealing it to the entire world. So they actually, in one of their blogs, had an interesting statement that, privacy is just not wanting the whole world to know, while secrecy is you not wanting anybody to know. So there's a difference there. It's like maybe I want to keep some things private to myself and the party I'm interacting with versus sharing that, on the entire blockchain since it's not private. It's pseudo anonymous. So while there is no name right now associated with maybe your address on the blockchain, with enough time, history, and if somebody wants to look into it enough, they could possibly find out who you are in real life. And also, additionally, on top of maybe, security and privacy concerns, you also are going to have institutions, hedge funds, pension funds getting into the DeFi space because of the ability to earn yield here, as opposed to, on some of the old legacy financial products like bonds that are paying, 0.5% interest or even negative interest rates in some countries. So DeFi is something that, you know, real firms, financial institutions want to get into. And there are a few barriers for them coming in. One of them is definitely custody. And we've talked about multi-party computation in the past, that I think that will be a big part of it in the future. Or maybe if there's some other custodian protocols that come out to get rid of private keys. And then additionally, on top of that, having privacy is going to be huge for hedge funds, financial institutions that are moving around a lot of value and where their whole business model depends on their alpha. And if you're not familiar with alpha, it's a financial term. It basically means abnormal returns above the market. So you could imagine if maybe on average the S&P 500 is, earning you 8%, you could use that as, market returns. And if you're a hedge fund, some financial institution that tries to make money for your clients, ideally you're making them more than 8% a year. And anything above that is considered your alpha. Now, why does that need to be protected? Well, in blockchain, if you have an address that's moving around, potentially tens, hundreds of millions, maybe even billions of dollars in value, there's people that run analytics on the blockchain, and they may kind of zero in on that address to see what they're doing and see if they can kind of divulge their strategies by monitoring their transactions. So this is like a huge risk to institutions that like their whole job is to kind of find ways to make money with people's money at a better rate than they could do for themselves with something just like a SPY ETF. So you can see how that will be really important. And with that, Panther Protocol is going to enable you to hide, your transactions via the use of dark pools. And as more value gets into those dark pools, it gets harder to determine who's going in and out of them over time, because obviously there's a lot more people involved in it, as opposed to if you put two people in a dark pool, obviously you got a 50-50 chance on guessing who it is when they come out. Now, if you have thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people potentially utilizing these private pools to move their assets in and out of, it now becomes much more difficult to glean information around what each user is as they leave these pools. So kind of getting into, what is the zero knowledge proof, and, what is the subset that Panther Protocol uses. It's called ZK Snarks. And I have a nice little diagram that's super simple and most people have probably encountered in their life. So imagine a situation where, you're going to a bar and you want to buy a beer. So in the US, for us, you have to be 21 years old or older, 20 years old or older in order to purchase an alcoholic beverage at a liquor store, the grocery store, at a bar, wherever. And generally, when you go there to, purchase an alcoholic beverage, you have to show them your ID. Well, the only thing they really need to know about you is that you're 21 years or older, but your ID contains all this other information about you. So it has like date of birth, your name, your full address, your ID number, and whatever else is stored on that. So whenever you're giving up your ID to somebody that's checking it to see if you're old enough to purchase that beverage, well, they could be malicious. I'd say most of the time they probably aren't. But imagine if you're somebody famous or with lots of money that may be recognizable by people that you would go and see at a store to go and purchase something. Well, if you hand them your ID and they see your address and they decide, hey, I want to try and make some money off finding out this famous person's address and maybe sell it to the paparazzi, well, they could do that. But was your address really necessary in order to purchase that beverage? No, the law doesn't state you have to live in a certain place. It just states you need to be 21 years or older in order to do that. So that's like a really simple example. With Panther Protocol, you would be able to use these third party intermediaries called trust providers, and they would basically do mathematical proofs to prove to whoever is selling you that beer that your date of birth states that you're older than 21. So, we can even take this further. Like when I signed up to get a Ledger Nano, they had all their information hacked. My information was included in that database. How much of the information that I gave them was actually necessary for them to keep and have on me that it may be hacked in the future? To me, probably some of that information wasn't super necessary. And also, like, if you can find a way where you're decentralized, storing your information in a decentralized way, and also in a private way to where you only disclose certain information about yourself, that can just protect everybody's identities, especially into a world where we have these massive tech firms and government agencies that just seem to want to monitor and basically keep a file on every single person out there in the world. So to me, like, this is really important, especially as we get more digital with money, that people have options for privacy. So like you could even imagine if, let's say, I was at a what are they called? Yard sale, and maybe I wanted to buy, an old Nintendo 64 and they were selling it for 50 bucks. And let's say we're in a world where, cash isn't super used anymore. Instead of doing a cash transaction, maybe I say, hey, I'll send you $50 worth of Bitcoin. It'll be a private transaction. Nobody needs to know about me buying a Nintendo 64 from my neighbor or selling it to them, anywhere else in the world. It doesn't need to be recorded for that reason. And I would be able to just swap private assets with him via the Panther protocol. So that's like another use case into the future, which I also think is really great. The ability to still have private transactions, even if it's like, oh, I have nothing to hide. It's like, why do I have to tell everybody about it if I don't have anything to hide? So to me, it just seems like a natural evolution. So that's kind of like a really base overview of Panther Protocol. They have a lot more going on. They'll also have a private interchain DEX in the future. So you can imagine maybe trading between Ethereum and Flare Network using a private DEX, and you could still protect, your identity and your information by using that into the future. So now going into their blog that announces their minimum viable product launch on Polygon. So this is just parts of their protocol. They're going to be developing the protocol and releasing everything, through at least the next 2 quarters of 2022, as well as through the end of the year. But with this, we're going to be able to do a few things. So the launch will be implemented via a few shielding pools. So you can think of these as like dark pools where you can move assets in and out of, and nobody really knows who's coming in or out with that. And these will be on Polygon, and all balances of Z assets, which a Z asset is just the private form of another asset. So you can imagine I have Ethereum, I lock it in a Panther vault, and I get issued a Z Ethereum at a 1-to-1 backing, and I can come reclaim it whenever I want. That's basically how it works. So those will be permanently backed 1-to-1 by their native collateral counterparts in Panther vaults. And at their MVP stage, we can expect the following. So you'll be able to shield and deshield assets to create Z assets. You'll be able to do private transfer of assets, voluntary full disclosures of selected transactions and their linkage. So imagine if you're a hedge fund and you did a bunch of transactions on the blockchain to participate in DeFi, and you had those transactions be private when you did them. Well, after the fact, if you need to disclose some information to maybe the IRS or some regulatory agency, you'll have the ability to do that, and you can just disclose it to that entity. So you don't have to disclose everything you've ever done to everybody in the world. You can just disclose information to people that need to know it. Additionally, they're going to have their own web wallet. They'll have the Panther Vaults, which is where you lock up assets to mint Z assets. We'll get a taste of the Panther Protocol DAO, and this is a long-term roadmap for Panther Protocol, where it will be a decentralized autonomous organization, and the ZKP token holders will have rights to do like governance and different things within the ecosystem. And then also they'll have reward mechanisms for users and providers of assets to shielded pools. So that will be the start. We'll see more things in the future, like, Flare Network becoming a peer chain, possibly Cardano, Solana, Polkadot, Terra Luna, all of those will, I assume, at one point get launched on by Panther Protocol. Additionally, they stated why they're doing the MVP on Polygon. Well, Ethereum is the largest DeFi blockchain by a large margin. So obviously there's way more capital to go after in Ethereum at this point. And then they'll start working to the newer smart contract blockchains that have been popping up over the past few years, or just getting to the point where they're fully developed, like in the case of Cardano or Polkadot. So with Polygon, they chose it because it has demonstrated incredible technical capabilities and has extremely low fees compared to Ethereum. So that's why they're going to Polygon first. And then I actually do imagine that Flare Network will be the second peer chain, as it was the first blockchain partner that I was aware of that Panther Protocol announced. And so with that, also in the Panther wallet, you'll be able to connect to Panther and access to services provided by Panther Protocol. You'll be able to transfer assets into Panther vaults. You'll be able to send digital assets to other users, preventing anyone from tracking the chain of senders and recipients without worrying about the Z assets minting process. So in this, we can see a little diagram. If you're the user here, you'll interact with these relayers that basically connect between the Panther Protocol ecosystem and you, as well as layer one of the blockchain. And this will enable private Z asset transfers. You'll be able to mint and burn Z assets by locking or removing the underlying assets from Panther vaults. We know that ZKP is going to be a native ERC20 token that can be bridged over to Polygon. And then additionally, the Panther L1 solution, which is initially going to be a side chain, will allow people to do private transfers through a Panther pool, which is basically like, you can imagine maybe ZETH to ZUSDT. So you can do a private transaction in that way. And then additionally, I do want to touch on, let's see, the Flare Network announcement that came out, let's see, June 4th. So towards the end of spring. And with this, the CEO and co founder, Oliver Gale, he worked for, I'm not sure if he still does, but he worked for a company called Bit. And I believe he was the founder actually. They were responsible for creating the first CBDC called Dcash in Barbados. So he has some experience in the industry already. And, as far as Panther Protocol providing privacy, to normal cryptos that you know about, like you think XRP, Ethereum, Bitcoin, Tether, and things like that, they're also looking to provide privacy for NFTs. Imagine if you own an NFT that's worth, goes up to 10 million one day, some like art piece. You may not want everybody in the world to know that. So, that could be a good way in the future to kind of be private about owning that NFT. Also, Dr. Anish Mohammed, who is their CTO, was a former Ripple advisor from 2013 to 2018. He was one of the reviewers of the original Ethereum orange paper, and he's also been in cryptography for over 20 years, worked with multiple different financial institutions. And we even did an interview with him this past summer that, if you guys want to check out, is under our Panther Protocol playlist. But just to touch on Oliver Gale's comments here, so he says, "We are delighted to work with the best in class, enabling privacy rights for individual and public blockchains. Flare has a powerful tech stack with a focus on institutional integration." And we talked about earlier how institutions need privacy in DeFi to protect their alpha. So they mentioned that here. And we also know Flare Networks and Hugo's team are definitely trying to tackle institutional DeFi. And then he finishes with, "We are excited to partner with them to build Panther privacy in the Flare ecosystem." And then additionally down here, Hugo says, "One element that arose from the GameStop short squeeze saga was the clear and urgent need to allow for privacy when making investments to avoid asymmetric outcomes." And an asymmetric outcome is just where one party has better information than another. So they technically could get an advantage over you when trying to find an equilibrium price to transact on. Additionally, he says Panther's design of a privacy enabling protocol that maintains KYC and AML compliance. This is also another huge part, is that it can still be compliant with KYC and AML in the future. And that's part of that selective disclosure process, while keeping users in control of their data, is, to my mind, a highly important development and very valuable addition to the Flare ecosystem. So that's what Hugo Fillion and Oliver Gale have to say about the Flare Panther Protocol partnership, which honestly, I think at this point, like, it probably seems like Flare will go live late November, early December. Don't kill me if I'm wrong on that. That's just a rough guess based on what I'm seeing. So that would give Panther Protocol about a month at most. And also we have holidays coming in at end of the year to get Panther going on Flare Network as a second peer chain. So I actually don't imagine that happening until at least Q1 of 2022, but it's not too far away. And obviously it's going to be a little better on Flare Networks as far as transaction fees and stuff. I'm not sure entirely how bridging between Ethereum and Polygon works, and if there's fees associated on the front and back end of that. I know once you're in Polygon, the fees are pretty minimal compared to Ethereum, but that's something that I'll have to be looking into here. And then additionally, Oliver Gale on Twitter, I tweeted at him asking about the partnership the other day, and he specifically said the ability to bring private value to the Flare networks and Ripple communities, talks about institutional DeFi extending onto Songbird Network in the future, and ZFUSD, the list goes on. So you could imagine, he says FUSD, so he's just basically saying a Flare version of a stablecoin. Well, we already know we're going to have Ore, and we're going to have YUSD from Flare Finance. So you can imagine private Ore transactions via the Trustline app in the future, maybe, or through Panther's web application. Additionally, maybe you provide a private version of YUSD into a liquidity pool against FXRP. Or, maybe we see in the future when we get XRPL's federated sidechains that they also integrate with the XRP ledger. And we did an interview, like I was saying, with Anish Mohammed earlier in the year. And this was also a big reason, he said, for his excitement around the Flare Network and Panther Protocol partnership, was that He said there are many institutions that hold XRP, or at least bigger players. They don't have to be like Goldman Sachs type level, but, you know, actual business and finance that have XRP. And for them to get into DeFi through Flare networks and minting FXRP, they're certainly going to want some private versions of that so that they can protect their alpha, like I was talking about. So that'll wrap it up for this episode. I guess last thing I'll add is there's going to be a public sale that some people will be able to get into. They haven't stated whether U.S. citizens will be able to participate in this or not, but that will be coming out in October at some point, and more information is either coming out this week or next week on that. So definitely stay posted on my Twitter. I'll tweet that stuff out. If there's enough information to do like a whole nother video, I can certainly do that. Or we can just bring it up when we do kind of like a daily news video with me and Mickey in the future. But I'm really excited. I don't know if I'll get in for the public sale or initially at launch. It's possible I wait until it gets on Flare networks, but I'm certainly looking at it. And, when I think about Panther Protocol to me, and obviously no financial advice here, it's just privacy is going to be needed, especially for bigger players. And I certainly think retail players like myself and many other people I talk to about cryptos on a daily basis would love to see more privacy get brought into the space. Now, whether Panther Protocol becomes a massive solution for it, I don't know. But, all you can do is see what's coming in the future and possibly try and get in on it before it gets there. I certainly would love to, provide some liquidity to their dark pools in the future and earn ZKP that way via incentives that they're going to offer. So that's another interesting route for me, as far as like you'll be able to participate in the protocol and earn some of the native token while also earning fees. So that's something I'm always looking for. And for me, ZKP is, a token that can be used for the long haul, especially with Panther Protocol's huge vision and trying to spread out as far as they can throughout the blockchain space. It just looks very interesting to me. So if you want to learn more, we have probably about like 2.5 hours of content on Panther Protocol already within the playlist, which will be on a little end screen once I close out the video. So with that, we'll keep you guys updated here on Panther Protocol, and especially when they eventually come to Flare Network. But this is the DeFi Standard. I'm Patty XRP, and I'm out.